Hi, everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and another week has passed, which means we have finished another Star Trek book off of the shelf. This one is a particularly satisfying finish, as well, I would say, and we'll get into why that is later. But first off, let's just go over the typical, what we go over here. This is Star Trek: The Best and the Brightest by Susan Wright. And I've read, more than one of her other books, and they're always very good. From the cover here, the future of Starfleet. And as you can see, we've got 6 cadets here that we're going to get to know throughout the story and throughout the chapters ensuing here. Now, from the back. Every year, Starfleet Academy in San Francisco attracts many of the most talented and ambitious young people in the Federation. They come from all over the Alpha Quadrant, from hundreds of worlds and species, to prepare themselves for challenges of the final frontier. Meet a new generation of cadets, a newly joined Trill just beginning the first of many lives, a Bajoran Vedic who finds himself torn between his vows and unspoken love, a reckless young man fond of pushing the limits, a feline alien raised among humans, a brilliant but immature young woman with a lot to learn, and a native-born Earth woman with a talent for engineering. Together they will learn about courage, life, teamwork, and themselves. Their future is just beginning, but one of them will not survive. Oh, okay, so there you go. And they give you that little bit of a spoiler there in the blurb, and you know what, it's okay, it's not that bad, because they do actually start the story with kind of like the teaser that oh my gosh, one of these cadets has died in the crash of the Enterprise D on Viridian 3, right? So very interesting there that's kind of how they started out, kind of knowing that that's something that's going to be going on, right? Now, we do have a little bit to learn from the book about books here, which I thought was very interesting. So, let's see. This novel was groundbreaking, not only in terms of having brand new characters. Susan said, "I always wanted to create a gay relationship in a Trek novel because I felt that the promise of a future without discrimination and bigotry had not been fulfilled. So when John Ordover asked me to create a whole new cast of characters who were attending Starfleet Academy, I wanted to include gay characters. The Best and the Brightest was the first Star Trek novel with main characters who were gay. Paramount agreed to my story proposal, but they insisted that the word gay should not be included." Dumb. They said that in the Trek universe, sexual orientation was not even noticed. I've always wanted to bring these characters back in a DS9 novel because Mol Enor and Jamie Miranda were posted there at the end of The Best and the Brightest. It was fun because at times I was used... Sorry. It was fun because at times I used all 6 of the characters like Forrest Gump, placing them in key Trek moments, such as the crash of the Enterprise D. And, this was one of the very cool aspects of the book, too, that I liked, was the way that she kind of wound the cadet story around the just like these various little moments, in the history of TNG, right? So that was very cool. And again, yes, groundbreaking in that, the first main characters, that were gay in a novel, which I guess now doesn't seem like that big of a deal, right? Because there are multiple gay characters in Star Trek, but back in 1998, which was 27 years ago, it was it was a different time back then, right? It was a different thing. So, very cool book, and also getting to read a Trek book, but with a cast of new characters. And probably characters you're never going to see again, right? It was interesting as well, too. And she took the opportunity with this book to almost make it... I mean, there is a single narrative that kind of drives through the whole thing, right? But for me, it felt almost like a series of short stories, and each one kind of highlighting a different aspect of one of the cadets, or perhaps a certain kind of training, a different training program that Starfleet was doing, and it also gave the opportunity to throw in plenty of little cameos here and there as well too, which was fun. So again, just a lot of different little things, and this one was recommended to me too because of the upcoming Starfleet Academy show. So if that's something you're interested in, then this book, also will kind of give you, just give you a little bit more of that Starfleet Academy feeling, right? You got a lot of that with the young adult novels. I think there was a lot of Starfleet Academy stuff there. But truthfully, I don't think that I've read or know of too many more novels that do cover stuff at Starfleet Academy. And I'm sure in the 800 plus books of Star Trek, there are multiple that do delve into that subject a bit more. But this one really, really goes into it very well. And it is a multi-year thing too. This follows these cadets through their first, second, third, fourth years, and again engages in multiple different stories in various points in the timeline, and just kind of able to. It's fun to be able to kind of see those little events from a different perspective. You don't think about it often, but things like the Federation News Network, right, reporting on finding Data's head underneath San Francisco. Things like that are very interesting to see from a perspective outside of the episode, right? So anyway, let's get into it a little bit deeper here. Spoilers abound. So the characters, we've got Jamie Miranda, Bobby Ray Jefferson, who was a Rex, and I'm assuming that he is the tall, long-haired figure there on the cover, standing above everyone else. He was a feline character, so they didn't really draw him. Well, I guess you can't tell too much from the picture. You just see like a face and some hair. But anyway, he's supposed to be like a feline character, described even as having kind of fur and a tail, right? So you've got Bobby Ray. And listen, I'm also referencing the memory beta for this too, because somebody went and put a lot of work into this. Somebody really liked this book, and they filled this thing out and did a heck of a job with it too. I did take notes, but my notes were not the best, right? Look at that, multiple different colors of pen, but it doesn't matter. But let's talk about the characters here. You have Jamie Miranda and Mal Enor. First off, Jamie was the San Francisco native, so she's the Earth, the person who was from Earth, right, that they described on the back. And she is the one who is kind of chasing after Mal Enor. And Mal is a Trill, and what makes her interesting is that she is the first host to a symbiote. So this symbiote has not had any other hosts, and this is like the first lifetime experience that she experiences, right? And there's also a young woman named Starsa, and her character is interesting. She's from a place called Opalasso, and she is like matures at a slower rate. So when you meet her, she basically acts like a child, and then throughout the course of the story matures and stuff. Nev Rio is a Bajoran who kind of failed at being a Vedek, failed at going into the Resistance, and ended up studying geology there at Starfleet. Bobby Ray Jefferson, of course, the Phelan, the Rex, and Hammond Titus, who is a human male who was raised in a subterranean colony. So these are your main characters, and then the story kind of just revolves around different adventures that they get into throughout their time in Starfleet, right? And it starts out kind of smaller, where like their first year they're kind of getting to know each other. They have to learn to work together kind of as a team, and in their first year they get into a little bit of trouble, I think, like in a caving. There's the first year of the little kind of bit that they do is when they find Data's head, and then that kind of makes them want to go explore these tunnels themselves. They get into a little bit of a trouble there, and so there's a little bit of a caving adventure. So if you don't like that kind of stuff, you might want to watch out for that. But that's just an interesting little adventure, right? And and just as the things go on, they get into other various adventures. And again, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. We will just kind of touch on the main points, right? And again, cameos. You've got a cameo from Guinan. Guinan meets Jamie in the first chapter and kind of talks some wisdom to her. You've got Dax, who knows Maul Enor, and kind of stands up for her after she's put on trial for possibly endangering her symbiote, which she didn't. There's an interesting. Oh yeah, an interesting. A lot of the training scenes that they do as well is very good. They have a very interesting sequence here with Titus, where he is in this exercise with another cadet. However, both of them are incapable of speaking. And they're put through these series of tests, and for whatever reason, the cadet he's with is struggling to do all these things that he is doing easily. He has to run the test again, but then he is put on the struggling side of it. And I thought that was a very interesting, I don't know, experiment maybe. Just how that he went through that and kind of what it taught him. That was very cool. Let me see, who else gets on some good adventures in this one? Oh, Nev Rio. He's stationed way out in the boonies, kind of taking care of some geological scans, making sure the Federation gets the right stuff, right? But then he gets caught up in rescuing some Orion animal women who are being sold into slavery, right? So he gets his own little kind of fun little story where he initially is just trying to save one, but then he ends up saving something like 16 or 17 of them, and they're all packed in this shuttle. And again, it's a fun story, and I love the fact that she took this opportunity to make a book of short stories, which isn't really a book of short stories, and it just, the way it works out with all these characters, it just worked out perfectly, right? There's a sequence in the third year where they are sequenced, stationed at Jupiter Station, and they work with Dr. Zimmerman in creating the EMH. So another fun little cameo, and you almost wonder if their interaction there affected his personality possibly in the future, right? So there's some fun stuff there. There's the continuing theme throughout the story of Jamie chasing after Maul and Maul kind of running away, right? And it's almost as if you kind of know something's going on there, and finally it all comes to a head at the end of the third year when they are kind of trapped together in this hostage situation, and she kind of sees what Jamie can do, and they finally fall in love there in the end. And then the culmination of the book is when you get to see, I said at the beginning of the book, they say one of them was lost during the crash of the Enterprise D. So kind of in the big culmination of the book here, you get to see, and it's weird that there's more after this. I felt like this kind of been closer to the end would have been better. But you get to see, how many times are they going to say that? The crash of the Enterprise D from a different perspective. From the perspective of these various different cadets and ensigns, throughout the ship in different places. And you get to see the final moments of the one that dies, and spoiler alert, it turns out to be Titus that dies, who is trying to, and I couldn't really figure, and I read it a couple times, he was working on a coupling where the saucer separates from the engineering section, right? Then everything happened. He gets everyone evacuated. He's the last one there. He thinks there's something wrong with the coupling. So he jumps back through, and then the force field snaps on, and he's left to die in the star drive section, right? So, I don't know. I'm thinking that maybe he did something to help, right? I'm hoping it wasn't kind of a lost cause kind of death, And maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But it was interesting to see again that perspective of all that going down. Very cool. So the book then goes into the fourth year, where it kind of gets into they're winding down here, right? And now they kind of finish off the love stories where Starsa, who begins to take more and more risks, finally gets herself hurt, and then is kind of found out to be that her body is kind of like rejecting this planet, right? It is should be developing at a different rate, and it's developing too fast, and she needs to get back to her home world. So she goes back there, and Nev takes her back there, and then the two of them they end up falling in love there too, you know. So at the end of the book, they do like we read in this thing, they put Jamie and Maul on DS9, so that kind of was interesting there. And you know, I don't think these characters show up again in any of Susan Wright's work, because I think maybe it would have been referenced in this, but I could be surprised and maybe we'll see them show up, you know. But again, it was just a fun collection of stories, fun to see a bunch of new characters for the Star Trek world, and she did a great job of making me interested in these characters and want to keep reading and want to, you know, I would like to see more about them, you know, obviously. They were all very well done, and then she threw in enough little cameos and things like that to keep, you know, even everybody else interested, I guess, who wasn't as much interested in these characters, right? But just again, a well done book of short stories. It wasn't really a book of short stories that tells a tells a tale of love, a tale of courage, and a tale of Starfleet Academy. No, that was silly. Anyway, it was fun. It was a fun book, and I enjoyed reading it. And I was and before I forget, the reason that this was kind of a very satisfying conclusion is because I have all of my Trek books. They are here, over here, as you can see. Look, there we go. This shelf here is the TNGs. It's like, you know, TNG starting with Ghost Ship or whatever. Boom, in published order all the way through. See that? There they go, all the way through. We're going back over here. Anyway, I've read them all, and I've talked about them all on this channel. I'm saying that now, and then I'm looking at it, and there's going to be like another one on there that I haven't read. If I find it, we're going to read it soon. But I believe that I've read every single one of them, except for this one. So now, as I put this back onto the shelf, I have this very full, complete shelf of things that I've read, and that's very satisfying to me. So it makes me want to continue on. Ooh, what's next? The Forgotten War. Anyway, we'll get to that stuff later. I know what's coming next, and it's a big one. It's going to be crossover, and that's going to be fun. But that's it for tonight. We got to go. Thanks for hanging out and talking about the best and the brightest here with me. As always, my friends, live long and prosper, and we'll see you guys in the next one. You have a good night.